Hello, everyone. Happy Tuesday. Yes, it is Tuesday. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm just going to give it a few moments. I know that Instagram takes a while to get people on here. But yeah, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you don't know me, my name is Jennifer Mistala and I am an attorney, I'm a coach, and I'm a speaker, and I help people divorce from humans, habits, and places that don't serve them. So for October, I did something that I really close to my heart. And basically, I started a series called Divorcing from Things That No Longer Serve Us. So the first one, I was supposed to have the amazing Kate Gray. However, that is when Instagram completely shut down. I nearly had a heart attack. I basically broke out in hives. It was very, very stressful for me. But I've now moved that to the 2nd of November. I will update you with all of the new details and everything going forward. But today I have a very, very, very amazing guest. And I've even actually written an intro, which I don't normally do. But because this person holds so much space in my life, as well as space in so many other people's lives, I wanted to show you and everyone that's tuning in who she is and what she essentially stands for and a bit of her background. So Gia Bass is probably one of the most remarkable human beings I've ever met in my life, right? I've not only worked with her on a professional level, she has also helped me through some of the darkest times of my life personally. And I do like to say that she did save my life. Gia is also the owner and the founder of a company called Flipping Normal. As you'll see, her Instagram handle is Flipping Normal, and I want you guys to follow her after this. She is a life and a transformation coach. She's a spiritual guide, an inspirer, and someone that whenever she walks into a room or into a space, she completely illuminates it. Gia also has quite a bit of a remarkable background, right? So she has held some exceptional spaces, from being a communication specialist for press conferences with people all over the world, with international artists like Annie Lennox, Pink, Lionel Richie, just to name a few. And she also was the senior producer at 3 Talk with Noreen. She has so much knowledge, she has so much experience, she has the capacity to take something that is so complex and so overwhelming and just make it more simple and actionable. So I'm going to invite her right now, and I cannot wait for you guys to meet her. She is also as bad with technology as I am. And today, of self-suffering, right? I'm going to wait for her to pop on. See if she comes on.
Hello. Hello. It's so funny to see you in my house.
I know, and I'm drinking out of your cup as well. So everyone, welcome Gia. As you can see already, like a complete beam of light. Gia is currently in Cape Town. I'm taking care of her house and her cat, who keeps meowing at me because he wants food all the time. But today we'll be talking about the concept of self-suffering, because Gia and I personally have gone through a journey of where we actually suffered more than we should have. And we looked at each other the one day and we were just like, we are done with suffering, right? Like we are done with suffering at the expense of ourselves. So yeah, Gia, like say hello to everyone and tell us a bit more about yourself and like your journey with suffering.
Okay, it's been a big journey with suffering. It's nice to see you. Nice to see everyone. So unfortunately or fortunately, I've been through a lot of hard times in my life. And I can't say I turned my pain into power. But what I did turn into power was the learning of my suffering. And the word suffering is quite a big word. It's bigger than pain. It's bigger than hurt. It's bigger than sad. The words I liken with suffering are sorrow, grief, mourning. Those are the words, or deep pain, where you cannot move out of that space, where there's so much hurt and so much betrayal, even a broken heart, where you cannot shift out of that. And it is hard, and it's hard to do on your own. So when Jen and I decided, and it was actually Jen, it was you who said to us, we were in Cape Town few years ago, and Jen said, it's enough suffering. We need to make a choice now. It was like sitting in the feeling of suffering and being unable to move out of it. Didn't matter how much healing, how much trauma, how many positive affirmations, how much reading, nothing could shift out of that space. But only when you suggested the decision, no more suffering. It's a stake in the ground. It's a line in the sand. When you say no more, and what that no more means is a very firm boundary. No one can ever cross that boundary again. There is a trust and an agreement that you make with yourself. First with yourself, and it's no more. Nobody can cross that boundary. And you choose, I call it your board of directors, the people in your life who sit as your board of directors, who you hire and fire, by the way, when you're ready. Jen and I have an angel team that we hire and fire as well.
You're fired.
We said, there's all the archangels that surround us, and we're like, if by February things haven't changed, we're retrenching. So you can even retrench your teams. But I have my board of directors. It's a friend who's going to be honest with me. It is a psychologist, a coach, an outside person who I can have a conversation with, who'll call me out on my bullshit. Because we can talk rubbish to ourselves all the time. I've got very good excuses and very good reasons for doing things. And when I can't move out of it, somebody else has to show me. And that person you have to trust. Then there's somebody who you laugh with. But that laughter from your soul, where you can do anything and be silly. And then the last one is a space that you can go to with a person who you can tell the same thing over and over again. I'll never forget, somebody once said to me in my practice, how do you deal with people telling you the same thing over and over again? For me, it's not the same. It was never the same. It's always different. It doesn't matter how long you take to absolutely shift out of a space. It takes people as long as they need to. But it does begin with a decision. And when you've made that decision, no more suffering, then you hire your board of directors. And then you can fire them too. They don't serve their purpose.
Sorry, so funny because we were Gia and I always were laughing now about Mercury Retrograde, and what happens with Mercury Retrograde is that sometimes the communication shift. And as she was saying that, I could hear her, but it was breaking up, right? So for me, when it comes to what you explained, G, I think that is probably some of the best advice that I've personally heard. I think we all think that we can do it ourselves, or we're too reliant on the wrong people. And I think when we become too reliant on the wrong people, or which I don't like to say the wrong people because those people were there to teach us lessons, of course, but when we rely on people that actually are destined to not understand us, they don't have the capacity to help guide, add value, add light, or anything. We get to a point where we blame ourselves. Do you know what I mean? We go, if I try a bit harder, maybe this person will understand. Or if I do a bit more of this, maybe this person will be there for me more. And I think that that's also a kind of self-suffering, right? Where we're constantly choosing people that actually have already made a decision that they can't be there for us. They can't understand our journey. They can't be on that same level. And we will take bits of our puzzle piece and give it to these people and then think that we're not enough. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean, but I also think there's another thing. So sometimes in friendships, you collude with each other. There's a collusion, and it suits both parties for the friendship to be in a certain space. There's a payoff about the friendship being in a certain space. If you're feeling more powerful than your friend, or if you're going through the same thing at the same time, it makes you feel normal and you don't want to get out of that. And of course, it's not conscious. It's part of your subconscious. And then it goes further. We all have a dark law underneath our needs, and our behavior, we have a dark law. So I'll speak for me. I had a dark law. I needed to have impact. Because of my childhood, I needed to know that I've had impact, and I would do anything to have impact, to know that I've impacted somebody's life in a good way. But the cost to me was so high. And so exactly what you're saying, I was giving away parts of myself that weren't for me to give away because I had this need to have impact. When I looked at it and I released the need to have impact, okay, the suffering also, because I was holding myself in that suffering. You know, we can't always look at what other people have done to us to cause suffering. We have to look at what we have done to ourselves and how we hold ourselves in a suffering space. So when I looked at that and I assessed my relationships and my friendships, I was holding myself in suffering by giving away parts of myself to people that no longer deserve that part. As a very giving, insightful, kind human being, not everybody deserves that. But that was on me. And people were taking more than I was willing to give, and I was getting angry, but that was on me. And so part of that decision where it was no more suffering, and you do an audit, you take personal inventory, and you have a look, friendships, relationships, work, for me, children, parents, family, and you look at where you're bleeding energy. But that internal suffering generally comes from a lot of hurt. It comes from somebody hurting you really bad, and often a lot of betrayal and a betrayal of trust. And that's the whole thing with suffering. You have to make a decision that no matter what's happened, you will not allow it again, okay? And you will do it differently, but you have to open up the channels of trust and friendship, because otherwise you're going to live the same. So you might say, oh, I'm not going to have suffering, but you're not going to be open and willing to new possibilities that show up and new moments in friendships and finding the magic in the mundane. So that's a big thing that I learned, to trust again. And that comes with going back to board of directors, but giving away parts of ourselves to people who are not on the same level, but sometimes truthfully don't deserve it because they're taking and not replenishing. And when you're not being replenished, there's no nurturing and there's no nourishment. And so the credits and the debits don't add up, and you end up being in deficit. And when we're in deficit, we get burnout. Yeah. We get friendship burnout, relationship burnout. And that burnout causes suffering.
Yeah. Get life burnout. Just one big burnout. Like for me, what you said was so powerful is the concept of trust, right? And me and you have spoken at length about trust. And I think do you think that it's harder for people to trust other people or have the capacity to trust themselves? Because I think so many times we give trust to other people, but whenever we have to make a decision, we doubt ourselves and we don't. Do you know what I mean? Where does that inner trust come from? Like how do you kind of get there?
That is a brilliant, brilliant question, something I'm working with as we speak. So the only person you need to trust is yourself. Yep. You need to trust you. Okay. And in my practice spiritually, trust stands for to release unto spirit totally. Spirit can be replaced with God. You know, it doesn't matter which religion you are, okay? Because sometimes we have to hand over. I can trust in myself. So I went through a stage after lockdown. I didn't want to leave my house. My anxiety was so high. I was suffering so badly that going out in Corona and going to shopping centers, my anxiety used to peak terribly. And even going into the supermarket for 20 minutes was a big outing. So yeah, it was a big outing. I still don't love it, but I got on a plane and came to Cape Town. It's my third time since then. And every time I've stretched myself, because the only person I need to trust in difficult situations is me. If I trust me, then the other person who I'm engaging with, they just need to trust themselves. I cannot control anybody and I cannot control anybody else's behavior. But I am 120% in control of myself if I've done work on myself. If I realize and I am cognizant and aware, my mind is aware of what triggers me, what makes me feel uncomfortable, what makes me feel unsafe. Why was my anxiety peaking? what caused that deep sense of dis-ease inside? And it was fear. It was absolute fear. It was more the fear of being uncomfortable, or more the fear of being let down, or more the fear of somebody's going to do the same thing to me again. What will I do? And also negative self-talk. You know, I can't take it. I can't take
I
another
just
person
can't.
doing that.
And then you
I
end
just
up
can't.
bullying, like, I can, but I want to leave.
Yeah, but I can't. I can't. You know, or can you believe it happened again? Yes, it will happen again, because when you draw it to yourself with such negativity, but it's hard to go from suffering to trust in yourself. There has to be a period where you eventually you go to healing. It goes from decision, healing, and in between that, then trust happens. But you don't just go out of suffering. You need to have a period of healing, and you've got to be very gentle on yourself when you're healing, because, guys, life is hard. And the other thing that you need is compassion, self-compassion and compassion for others, because everybody has their own sore point. And when your sore point meets somebody else's sore point, okay, it's double suffering. It really is. So compassion is a big one, self-compassion and compassion for others. I've noticed a lot lately, there isn't a lot of compassion. I don't know how you found it.
No,
I found that there isn't a lot of compassion or honesty.
I think a lot of people, are depleted, right? So say, for example, like, instead of them saying, I'm depleted, and saying no to things like, no, I can't do this, or no, I can't be there, or I'm not feeling so good at the moment, they actually take their own kind of suffering and go, why does this person rely on me all the time? Or why does this person do this? Instead of actually realizing that they haven't set boundaries, or they have set boundaries, but their boundaries are so paper thin that that person doesn't know that they've gone through a shift. So I think when it comes to compassion, how are you supposed to be compassionate, empathetic, kind to others when you can't even do it yourself? And I think that's what's so fascinating about society, is that when you do it for yourself first, you get called selfish, and it's a bad thing. And I'm just like, I'm selfish, because if I'm selfish now, I get to make impact. One, two, I get to be more compassionate because I'm valuing myself. It's called self-care. And let's say people want to call it
self-preservation. It's self-preservation. What it is.
Yeah, it is. Totally.
It's self-preservation. The other thing is, let's talk about boundaries for a bit, because there's different kinds of boundaries. Okay, there's three kinds of boundaries. There's porous boundaries, brick wall boundaries, and healthy boundaries. Yes. Often I find where people are flooded is because they have porous boundaries. They don't know how to say no kindly, and they feel bad. So I'll give you an example. I used to, when I had clients and it was late at night and a client was in distress or a friend was in distress, because I can help them. I absolutely can. So if I'm responding late at night at 11 p.m., I've got porous boundaries, because I shouldn't be. Just because I can doesn't mean I must. That's a porous boundary. A healthy boundary would not be to reply at all, but to, in the first thing in the morning, say, thank you for your message. I don't respond at 11 p.m. How are you feeling today? I have time for a call between 9 and 10, or 10 and 2, whatever it is. A brick wall boundary is a tough one, because often when we hurt, the shutters come straight down and it's hard to penetrate. It becomes a one size fits all. I remember somebody once said to me, they've been hurt by a whole lot of men. And she said, when she starts dating, she's going to have a taser. She's going to taser them. There's no space. It's like, come near her, she's going to taser them. That's a brick wall boundary.
That's like that's like literally like a boundary of a wall in like a prison, where like you go near the wall and you get tasered.
You get electrocuted.
And I think everyone that's listening, I think we've all been in one of those. Like, I know for me, I had no boundaries. You want to get hold of me? I'll save you. I was like Oprah giving away cars, but giving away free love. I'll save you. I'll save you. Don't worry. If your life's a mess, I'll fix it. Don't worry. I'm like Bob the Builder. Like, let me fix everyone. But I had to realize that was my fear of, if I don't fix and I don't help, I have no value in this world. I have no impact.
There you go.
And then I went to the, like, anyone come near me. Okay, I didn't taser them, but I tasered them in my mind, right? Like, it's like those things that they have at the Chinese restaurants where as the fly comes, the racket, they're like, with the flies.
Zink.
And
Smash
then
those
I've got a healthy boundary. And to get a healthy boundary is very difficult. Like, the anxiety that you get when you're trying to enforce a healthy boundary is very, very scary, right?
You get that anxiety because you're scared of what somebody will think of you. You're scared that you'll be letting them down. You're scared they're going to think you're selfish. They're scared you're not going to be approachable. You're scared they won't come again. But if you think about it, we've basically just likened human beings to flies that we want to zap with a fly swatter. Okay, so that's my whole point about suffering. Sometimes it doesn't matter how many boundaries you have. It is like a person electrocutes your electromagnetic field around you when they come near you, okay? Because their intention is not pure. And that's another thing with suffering. When somebody's intention is not in a good place and they want something from you that you can't give, that's not theirs to take, that's an assumption on their behalf, the impact on your inner being is exponential. And then you get drained. So it's impossible to add a boundary. It's impossible to give anything to anyone. And the difference between selfish and self-preservation is simply self-preservation is looking at yourself, those around you. So for parents, looking at children, for those in relationships, work, business owners, all of that, to look at those and see if I don't preserve that part of me, my essence, okay, I'm unable to give anything to anyone, let alone myself. And me, I don't do me time. It's I. It's not about me, it's about I. It's the separation of when I can meditate, or I can be in a bath, or I can be with a friend without my phone. You see, me time doesn't include my phone. It doesn't replenish me. So what's changed with the suffering is a phone or a social media, when you don't plug out, can be suffering in and of itself. Because what you start looking at, what you start reading, are triggers for the suffering. And you don't find that centered part of yourself. You're not going to find boundaries there.
Yeah.
There you go. You're comparing, and then everybody looks so fantastic.
Yeah, of course. It's social media. Like, I know even like every single time I go to the petrol station by my house looking like a beggar, I see someone from school and they're like, it looks like you do so well on social media. And they're looking at me like, oh, what the hell is going on there? Like, but I find it, I think when you get to the point where you can just own everything. But what I wanted to ask you is, do you think in life that, because when you look at the most top, because you brought up the concept of impact, and it's one of those things that are fascinating, because sometimes we get so obsessed with impact that we don't actually realize by just being, we're making impact. By just smiling at someone that we walk past, we're making impact at those small things. But like, some of the most top influential people in the world have gone through suffering. So do you think that suffering is actually, like, we all need a little bit of suffering in our lives, or a lot of suffering? Like, when is it like, what is the benchmark of suffering? Because like, even Viktor Frankl from the Holocaust, he says when suffering becomes meaning, that's when you get to like basically change people's lives and all of that. But how do we suffer and take the good out of it?
Okay, so how you suffer and take the good out of it is, first of all, you don't change. I haven't changed. I'm still kind. I'm still humorous. I still have generosity of spirit. I'm still approachable. I just choose more selectively and discerning who I engage with. Suffering, I call it the H factor. It is the human. Okay. And I find people don't have the H factor. It is the head, the heart, the higher self, it's humility, it's honor, and it's the human. Okay. So what suffering does is it connects you to a very humbling space within yourself. It becomes impossible to ignore a beggar on the side of the road and not notice, because that person is suffering. Nobody chooses to wake up and one day go, oh, I'm going to go be a beggar. Or nobody chooses to say, oh, I'm going to get married, to get divorced, and have my heart broken. Okay. Nobody chooses the depth of suffering. And very sensitive people and empaths like me and like you feel everything. Okay. So that makes the suffering double. So when somebody hurls arrows at you, okay, you feel it badly, right? A lot of top people have gone through suffering, but they've used their suffering not just to make them stronger, but to refine and define their message. Okay, my message comes from the human heart. It's another H. Stop hurting other people. Hurting people is not okay. Judging people's not okay. I call it the judge and the jury, right? I've been on trial for things I didn't even attend the trial. And I've had a judge and a jury hand down a sentence because people have said, oh, she's done this and she's done that. That has impacted me and it's caused suffering. What have I done with that suffering? I've now decided what my message is. And it's to teach people about how the human heart works and which part hurts and which part doesn't, and what is okay and what isn't. And I can tell you unequivocally, if you have an intention that is laced with that, it benefits you, because since Corona, the energy in the world has changed. Okay, it's a little bit like a pressure cooker. Okay, and Corona it's exposure therapy. It's just nobody's changed. It's just been more of who they actually already were. So you can see clearer. When you've had the level of suffering and you're watching somebody inflict suffering on someone else, okay, get involved and say something. Everybody who's been through suffering and has used it has a voice. Yeah. They have a voice. So if you listen to, even if we go to Oprah and we listen to her story, how she's used her story to empower others. Look at her Leadership Academy. What opportunity she's given those girls. So whatever opportunities you never had, or if people never heard you, be the one that hears others. Hear people.
No, that's powerful.
Properly listen. Properly listen. I can honestly say from personal experience, not being heard and not being seen, when somebody thinks you're strong or things aren't so bad, internal pain and suffering, you might not be able to see it. It's not like a broken leg. Okay? A broken heart you can't see, but if you look carefully, you actually can. You can feel it, not see it. The difference.
Totally. I think for me, a lot of people they might be able to feel, but we become so obsessed with things that we can see and touch rather than what we can feel. Because I know I do it with a lot of my clients, and you, like me and you, whenever we connect and I see how you are with other people, you will always be able to feel how other people feel.
Oh, I lost you there. Yeah.
No, I know. Yeah. Mercury's like, hello, how's it? Cool. Let me just pause you.
And the other 7 planets.
No, I can't. But basically, like when someone, so for example, like you'll be able to feel when I'm not okay. We wouldn't have spoken or whatever. Yeah. That is a superpower, right? You possess a superpower that not many people do. I know before I met you, I might have had that superpower in me, but you brought it out. You're something that like I like to call an illuminator, where you see someone or feel what they're feeling, and you kind of weave through their heart and with their heart, and you make them believe in themselves, but not by what they can see or touch, but how they can feel. And I think if more people had to be in that position and had to be in that space, I know that I possess a part of that superpower, but because of you.
Yeah, you do.
Do you know what I mean? Because of I can now say to anyone, I can feel you. They might think I'm bonkers, but I can. And I think when you step into your power and you go, I'm a human, even though I've suffered, and you just own it, everything else changes.
Well, I think let's extrapolate that out. So we have 5 senses, right, which we know, but then we have 5 soul senses as well. And then we have 8 super senses. So whether that is clairaudience, clairsentience, claircognizance, those are senses where you can hear things that nobody else can. You can sense things. You can feel things. Let's call it intuition, right? Every single human being can develop their intuition so that it becomes a voice. It becomes a voice in feeling. It becomes a voice in hearing. It becomes a voice in tasting. So believing in people. How many people believe in people? How many really believe? How many people wear pom-poms like a cheerleader for those in their lives? No, not many. Not many at all. I know for me, I have very few people. Probably our friendship and relationship as colleagues is the only one where I know unequivocally that there is a belief in me. So when I lose faith and I can't see, you will come, but not with words, fluffy words, with actual facts, and show me like a mirror what I cannot see. That is called authenticity. It's real, relatable, relevant, okay? And it absolutely has behind it a pure intention. So if you look at intuition, starts with IN. It's internal. It's an internal process, okay? And you might not be able to see intuition, but if you act on it and you act on the messages, you actually can see it. You can see it in results.
Yeah.
If you you can see it in the results. Okay. When you're suffering, you're not connected to your intuition. There is nothing there. It cannot help you. It really cannot. You can't feel your inner GPS and compass is spinning. It's off center, and that's what you lose. So it doesn't matter how connected you are in those moments. It's to actually be honest and say, I can't feel. The only thing I can feel is pain. And what happens is you start to hear through lenses of pain and suffering. You can't hear clearly. Somebody can say, hello, how are you? And you'll hear something totally different. Hello, how are you? I'm going to hurt you. But they haven't even said that because you are so wounded. That's what you hear. You almost expect to be hurt by other people. You've got to clear out your filters and your lenses. That's why I say there has to be that period of healing. You don't just go from suffering to healed to happy to trusting. It doesn't work like that. It took me a long time. And the healing is continual.
Like many tears.
Healing.
Many everything.
Many tears, okay, and many hard conversations. And let me tell you, if a coach or anybody has the pretense of life being perfect, right, and never having suffered or never having those difficult feelings, those are people in spaces that for me, I'm uncomfortable in because I cannot connect there. I need to connect heart to heart and head to head and higher self to higher self. Those 3 pathways have to be open for me to connect because that's real. That's the essence of humanness. It's the H factor. Our hearts. There was a series, a TV series, Heart to Heart, and I can still hear the music. Okay.
I also it's the music as you said that.
Yeah, it had Stephanie Powers and I don't remember the other guy in it. But it's heart-to-heart conversation and heart-to-heart living. Suffering is in the heart and it's also in the head. It's how do you get out of your head? You heal your heart. How do you get out of your heart? You heal your head. But you need somebody, a third party, who is absolutely objective to help you do that. And all I can say is I'm grateful for my intuition guiding me to the places and spaces and the people, including you, who have assisted me on my journey. And it was long and it was hard and it was rough. And part of my mission on earth is to help people be a little bit less broken on this planet because I've been broken And that brokenness was excruciating. And if I can alleviate just a little bit for someone in their heart, that is my aim. Because suffering sucks, basically. Big time.
Yeah, like, we can sit here and we can say, like, thank goodness, because obviously pain is like a precursor for growth. And like, I think I've learned most of my lessons during pain and suffering. Do I want more of it? No. Will it come? Yes. Are we more equipped for it? Who knows? We will see when we get there. But it's like that support, and it is one of those things where, and I'm going to close off in the next 5 minutes. I just want to ask you if you could, like, people that are listening, and I know I normally do this, and it's one of those things where I think there's so much overwhelm in the world. There's so much going on. People are trying to navigate through suffering, their families, their job. There's so much. And I like to call it the one thing, right? Like, if you could tell people one thing that they can hold close to them that would help them, because suffering isn't like, yes, we say pain is inevitable, suffering is optional, but sometimes it's not optional. Sometimes you can't get out of it. And if people, and we all have different levels of suffering. Some people suffer beyond more than anyone, like more than we ever will, but it still hurts and it still has impacts on that person. So if you could give
two things.
Two things. Obviously, you never go according to plan. No,
I've got two.
Like,
obviously.
I've got a bonus one. Two things.
It's two things, because it's two things, whichever one you'll remember. One is the serenity prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. That prayer, if you can remember that in your mind's eye. And there is another thing. If you're in the midst of pain and suffering, from my heart to yours, keep first things first. And with grace and gratitude, I promise you, this too shall pass. Those two statements, hold close to your chest, and one word, connection. Find someone you connect to, open your heart and leap. Trust. That's my two things.
Yeah, you're gonna get me emotional. So basically, like, for me, those, when you have that and it's yours, the power that you possess is remarkable. So, Gia, I wanted to just thank you so much for this conversation. It was absolutely beautiful. I hope everyone enjoyed. Follow Gia. Her content is like, she's gonna go, but her content is absolutely amazing. It's kind of those things, like, you know, when you look at something and it makes you feel and you don't know why, that's exactly it. So thank you so much, G, for joining me. I really appreciate it. I love you so much. And yeah, I'll see you soon.
Bye.
Cheers. Bye. Cheers, everyone.